Welcome. In this video, we are going to be treating the secrets to quality math production. Premium quality math production is not just any other formulation or any other teachings as regard math paint production, but this one is going to be very, very unique and different from virtually everything you have been exposed to or things that you know before, or better still, it's going to be a build up on the things that you've known before. Just like you know me to be, now let me flex muscle a little bit. That's what an allied chemical expert, so to speak, and with a focus in paint production. So you can always be sure that we know what we're actually doing or talking about when we come out to talk about paint production. So we'll be sharing from our wealth of experience. For more than 15 years, we've been in this field. Just having to be very, very, how do I put it now? Not to, exaggerating. I'm trying not to exaggerate how long we've been doing these things. We've been around also for a while online, and you can be sure, for those who have come in contact with some of our teachings and some of our videos, they know what we can actually deliver. And that is exactly what we are going to do with this video, as we'll be talking about matte paint production. It's going to be matte paint production, but our focus is going to be on what we are going to do to get the best of results. What really concerns me in this field is how we can actually leverage on some of the things that is at our disposal in getting premium quality paint that can actually stand the test of time and compete favorably in the market with the so-called high brand paints. The likes of your Julius, you want to say the likes of your Beja paints and every other one that you can think of, probably President paints and every other one that you can think of. You also can produce that standard. I usually say most of the things that actually differentiate your own production or your home product from theirs lies in knowledge, the quality knowledge that is actually used in crafting their product, or the expertise that is actually involved, which is built on the foundation of knowledge. And that is exactly what we'll be sharing in this class, how we can actually maximize some of the materials at our disposal, because we don't have access to every of those materials that these production giants may have. But then we can leverage on some of the things that we have and produce a competitive or paint, a paint that can actually compete favorably in the market with theirs. And that is the information we are going to be giving onto us in this class. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be educative. It's going to be a little bit elaborate. Let me just add that too. It's going to be a little bit elaborate, so you want to sit back and learn. So our focus in this will be on the best filler for matte production. Just like I said, I know each and every one of us know how to produce matte paint. So that is not going to be my focus, but you having consistent result, or you having a top-notch quality product, is the area I'm very, very much interested, and that is what this teaching is going to do. So we want to consider the best fillers for your matte production. One, aside the binder that is actually used in the paint, there are key things that play a very salient role in ensuring that high and top quality paint is actually, especially matte paint now, because we're actually discussing matte paint, is actually attained, and that is the fillers that is actually used in that production. Now, I was actually talking about the fact that you all know how to produce paint, but you are exposed to two major filler that is actually used in matte paint production, because that is what is mostly used, and you think that is all there is to the filler that can give you premium quality. I bet you that is not all there is. There are loads and loads and loads of other fillers that you can use in paint production. Now let's deal with the very first two that we know. We have the very first two fillers that I know, I'm very sure that you know about, is one, CaCO3, which is calcium carbonate. That is the very first one. I'm very pretty sure you can't even produce matte paint without that. Better still, you can call yourself a producer without knowing what calcium carbonate is. So calcium carbonate is actually a filler, and also it can serve as an extender. It can serve as an extender. So it can serve the purpose of filler and then extender. So you'll be saying, what is the difference between an extender and a filler? A filler gives body, it gives body to the paint. But an extender is a spacer, it spaces titanium dioxide. It spaces titanium dioxide. Why? Because I usually made mention of the fact that when you watch some of my videos, or when you read some of my article, I point out in recent time that one of the most difficult pigments we have in paint production is titan, or titanium dioxide. That is one of the major and difficult pigments you have to disperse, once to disperse, and the other to control in a given production, to control its effects in a given production. But not so many people are actually paying attention to this, because they think it's one of the most and the easiest pigment to disperse. It's not true. That is an illusion of this pigment called titan. Titan is very difficult to disperse. So if not well dispersed, you are going to have issue. And one of the issue that arises from poor dispersion of titanium dioxide is roller mark. Roller mark is one of the major aftermath of a no non-fully dispersed titan. So one of the major resultant effect of a non-fully dispersed titan is that eventually you are going to have roller mark, whether it is in deep colors, or in light shades. Light shade colors. So eventually you are going to end up with roller mark, and that is one thing you want to avoid in your production. You want to avoid that you have roller mark, because it destroys the aesthetics of the substrate you're actually painting. So you want a paint that is rolled without roller mark, and so one of the culprits of that is this. So now you find out that the reason why this is like that is because titan has the tendency to crowd. We call it crowding. In technical terms, we call it crowding. So when you roll your paint on the wall, the pigments, the titan pigments or particles wants to come back to fuse together. They want to fuse together. That is the reason, one of the major reasons why you use your dispersant. One of the major reasons why you use your dispersant, and the example of that is Calgon. Calgon is actually a brand name or a trademark. What you have in that, the chemical you have in it is sodium polyphosphate. Sodium polyphosphate. polyphosphate. That is what you have in that brand, sodium polyphosphate. So we have other dispersants, and one of the other dispersants is H, though is actually sodium phosphate salt too, HMP. Is actually a sodium polyphosphate salt. The other one that is most active is ammonium polyacrylate. I don't know if you can see that. Polyacrylate. Acrylate. So it's one of the major, most effective dispersants that you can use in any production. So if you can lay your hands on that, lucky you. So the pigment titan, just like I mentioned earlier, wants to crowd together. The particle of that wants to crowd together. In other words, they want to fuse together again and become solid particle. So in order to keep it separated, we have dispersant. That is the reason why we use dispersant, for it to be properly scattered in the paint you are actually producing. You use dispersant. But then another thing that we use in keeping, or in stopping or obstructing this so-called crowding is the use of fillers. Filler. But in that regard, we call such filler an extender. We call such filler an extender. So now, this calcium carbonate can serve the purpose of a filler and can serve the purpose of an extender. So two different function of a filler or calcium carbonate, because majorly I think calcium carbonates serve that purpose much more better. Why? One, because it's cheap, or it's cheaper than every other filler that we have. So it serves that purpose as an extender, as a filler. It serves the purpose of an extender and the purpose of being a filler. So it serves such dual purpose. Now, when it serves the purpose of a filler, we call it the body of the paint. It produces or forms the body of the paint. The body of the paint, which contributes also to the weight of the paint, and also, now when it serves the purpose of an extender, it separates your pigment. It separates the particle of your pigment, in this case titan. So titan, we now call it an extender of titan, or extender of titan, or titan extender. So that is, I am very, very sure most of you don't know this. You don't know the reason why you, maybe one of the function of using one of the function of using your calcium carbonate in your production, but maybe not every other function. But these are the reason why you use this filler, calcium carbonate. Now you will say, how do we know the one that serves the purpose of a filler, the purpose of a filler, and the one that serves the purpose of an extender? The secret to that, or to the determinant factor of that, is the filler's particle size. Is the filler particle size. So the filler particle size will inform you whether that calcium carbonate is serving the purpose of an extender or is serving the purpose of a filler. For example, I've talked about pigment particles a whole lot, especially on calcium carbonate. When, okay, for example, 2 microns. When the pigment particle or your calcium carbonate particle size is around 2 microns, very smooth, extra smooth. It serves the purpose of an extender. But if it is more coarse, let's say 5 microns, it serves the purpose of a filler. It serves the purpose of a filler. In other words, the pigment particle will determine what the purpose of that of that filler. Now, for example, you get to notice in some foreign formulation, you have two no calcium use, two calcium use, same brand. And the reason why that is because they won't want to serve as an extender and the other one as a filler. One of the recent formulation that I was working for, we used two major filler, same brand, Omia. We use Omia 5, we use Omia 2. So one serves as a filler, giving body, the other serves as an extender, separating or as a spacer. Okay, let me use, we usually use the word spacer also, spacing titan or titanium dioxide, because I know it is not just Nigerians that are actually watching this. So it serves that purpose as an extender or a spacer. So that is actually that about that. So you either one of the most common filler that is used in paint production is this calcium carbonate. You can't even escape it. You can't escape it. You definitely have to use it. So it's either it's actually serving as a filler or as a spacer or as sheen control, as a sheen control, or for the purpose of controlling sheen. And that is why it is very, very important in matte paint production. So in matte paint production, we have calcium carbonate as one of the major go-to filler. Then the second one is kaolin. Yeah, kaolin. You can produce a premium matte paint without the inclusion of kaolin. Why do we have to include kaolin? The reason why we have to include kaolin because it improves the scrubbability of that paint. It's improved the scrubbability of that paint. So the addition of kaolin and the addition of this ensure that the scrubbability of that matte paint is increased, or it is improved. It is improved. So those are the major these are the major fillers that These are the major filler that and these are the major filler that most of us are actually familiar with in the production. Some go ahead not just to use one system filler, but it's not actually right when trying to produce premium high quality matte paint that can actually stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the top brands that you envy, some of those top brands that you envy. Now, another secret, or the last secret, secret filler that I actually want to talk about here is silica. Oh my God. This is the most fantastic filler when producing top notch matte paints. You cannot do without silica. So when you are still using calcium and kaolin in your production, you are still a midget, or you are still in the mid range of producing matte. But when you now begin to include silica, you are moving to the premium end of matte paint production, a premium end of matte paint production. So it gives you a better quality matte when you include silica. That leads us to one thing I call the most preferred what is it called, filler in matte paint production. So these are the top rangers, at least the ones that you have, the one that we have in our climb. These are the top rangers. But for other people in other climb that have access to more chemical, we can now begin to have I think if I can remember the spelling, it's spelled neofa. Neo or neofa. Is it neophylline cyanide? Yeah, I think that is the spelling. It's always a little bit difficult for me to pronounce. Neophylline cyanide. So that's is okay. So we have that neophylline cyanide, or you can help me with that pronunciation, neophylline cyanide. So that is actually one of those top filler that is actually used in matte paint production. Brands like Doulos uses it in their what they call, I'm trying to remember this, their range of mats. There's this range of mats. Something like maybe royal mat or something like that. Yeah, royal mat or something like that. So they use it in that. You see how matty it can actually get. And I think they use it in their washable mats as well. They use it in their eggshell. In a well, maybe specifically I cannot speak for that, their eggshell, but then I know they use it for the other range of mats. But no, don't let us disturb ourselves with that. We can just make do with this. When producing premium quality paint, especially premium quality matte paint, we are looking at these three combination, these three combo. One is calcium carbonate, two is kaolin, and the third one is silica. Other people may actually want to include talc, but once I include these three, I'm good. The combination of these three gives you premium quality matte paint. You say, okay, what is the ratio of the combination? This can be as high as 55% of the total production. This can be as high um, as 25%, and this can be as high as 10 to 15%, 10 to 15% of the total weight of that production. So that is the range in which you include them in your paint production to get a premium quality matte paint. Premium quality matte paint. That is exactly what you need for that premium quality. So I'm not talking about the binder now. Then probably in subsequent video we now begin to talk about the balancing of the binder so that we can get a top-notch quality. But then when you are producing premium quality matte, you want to pay attention to these three. this three filler is going to give you premium quality. Have you seen Julius mats before? How smooth and flat it is. It is always very different, subtly different from what you usually produce, and that is because they have mastered the use of these fillers. They master the use of this filler, and I can assure you they are no, if I can't tell you authoritatively, because don't have access, nobody have access to their production sheet. No, but then based on technicality of production, we can very well analyze what they use. We can analyze what they use. So and tell you what exactly, if not what exactly, what no that can actually give us. So I can assure you these are the range of combination. These are the range of combination. It can now be maybe less, or it must just fall within that range. It must fall within that range. You get it? So it must fall within that range. Now, what inspire? Do I say what inspire now, or what informed the use of these three things? What informs the use of these three fillers? There is something we call OA. OA, when we are calculating formulation, when we are calculating the chemicals that we want to use, especially filler that we want to use in our formulation. This OA is oil absorption. Oil absorption of the filler. Oil absorption of the filler. What is oil absorption of the filler? Oil absorption of the filler is how much of a particular oil will be needed to mix or to fully wet 100 gram of that filler. How much of oil, and the oil that is used is called linseed oil. Linseed oil. Linseed oil. You must probably have heard about linseed oil. Especially it is mostly used in the production of acid resin. It is used in acid resin, but no, it is also used in checking for the oil absorption of these fillers. And I've actually arranged it in the order of their oil absorption. This one, the oil absorption falls between maybe 25 or thereabouts. But this is the highest, about 250 or 280. Either 280 or 250. That's the highest. The oil absorption of this is from between, I think, 35 to about 50 or thereabouts. So the oil absorption is, you now begin to ask, what is actually the implication of oil absorption of a particular filler? The oil absorption of a particular filler will determine how much of that will be used in a production, and it will now determine how effective they will be in controlling, especially when we are talking about matte paint production, in controlling the sheen of that production. So in matching that that production, in matching that production. For example, you see how much of this we are going to need. That means this calcium carbonate serves as an anchor. These serve the purpose of complementing both the tan and this and the calcium, but these we'll use it in a very minute amount. For example, in 20 kg, in 20 liter rather, because the paint may be the weight of the paint may not be 20 kg. That's one mistake that we used to make, that 20 kg is equals to 20 liter. That is not true. Now, sometimes the weight of the paint is different from the volume of the paint because of what we call as specific specific gravity. Specific gravity of all that you use. Sometimes the total specific gravity of all the chemicals you use, in paint production may be sometimes around 4.4, 1.4, 1.2, 1.3, as the case may be. So when you now multiply it by the volume, you now have the total batch weight, which sometimes can be 23 kg, sometimes can be 24, sometimes can be 26 kg, depending on the specification you use in your calculation of that formulation. So all of those things are a little bit technical, but then I just sometimes have to infuse it because somehow, which we got to know about it. So you too can also get to know about it someday by doing your own research. So the oil absorption of a particular filler, we determine how much of binder it will consume. That is where this linseed oil comes in. It's actually replicating your binder. It's representing your binder in that sense. So the higher the oil absorption of a particular filler, the higher the amount of binder it requires to totally wet the particle or to fill the void of that very what is it called, filler. So the implication of it is that it will be faster and effective in controlling sheen. That is why this is actually involved. It will help in upgrading so many quality of that paint. It will now help you to be able to dance around what we call that's the critical pigment volume ratio, the CPVC, the critical volume ratio. I know I'm now sounding a little bit technical, which I ought not to, but then also learn from there by having to go and do your own research. So that is that about that. So when you're actually looking for premium, you want to produce premium base quality matte paint, you are looking at this, you are looking at this, you are looking at this. So you want to use calcium carbonate in that production, you want to use kaolin, and you want to use very minute amount of silica. Maybe in 20 liter you can just use like 1 kg. 1 kg is enough. It will matte it. It will matte. Even if you reduce this totally, the effect of this silica in your paint will be very, very pronounced. Will be very, very pronounced. So when you are producing matte, aside using this three, you also want to pay critical attention to their particle size. Though I have mentioned it earlier, their particle size is very, 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 very important. The particle size is very, 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 very important. You want to pay attention to that. So you want to pay critical attention to their particle size. Critical attention to their particle size. For calcium, for ultra premium, for ultra premium, you want to go for 0.5 to 2 microns. That's for ultra premium, extra smooth, no type of roughness there. And then for normal premium, you want to go for between 2 and 2.5, between 2 and 5 microns. So for kaolin, you want to do 0.5 microns and 2 microns rather. And for silica, it's usually between 3 and 8 microns. But for the sweet spot for premium matte paint, it is 5 micron. So those are the particle size you want to look for. You say, how do I know the particle size? It's always written on it, especially when you are buying foreign fillers. For example, Tocab, we have that very much available in Nigeria. Tocab, you always see their 0.5, 2 microns, and then 5 microns. For for kaolin, you also will be able to get that also. For silica, it's always written, since that one is actually imported also. You always find the particle size written on it. These are the trio of quality and high premium mats. So this is the top secret. This is the top secret of those top brands. These are their top secrets. So when you master the combination of this filler, you're having very excellent result in terms of your matte paint production, in terms of your premium matte paint production. So it's not just matte paint production, it's premium matte paint production. So you want to pay attention, critical attention to all of this. See you